It's intro. Yeah. All right, welcome into another episode of Motor City Metrics here at TigersMLReport.com. I'm Rogelio Castillo. Alongside me is Chris, Uper, and John. And we're going on Wednesday today only because, quite frankly, tomorrow's the NFL draft, and I'm not competing against the NFL draft. The NFL will reign supreme all the time. And then, yeah, Chris is probably
bow to Roger Goodell.
Yeah, I'll bow to that Roger Goodell. So, Tyler Matson, by the way, Tyler Matson on our YouTube chat. The boys officially won more games in April than they did either in the last 2 years. Both were projected in the last 23 and against worse teams. That is a good way to start the podcast. And yes, Chris Myers did hit a home run and I went Michigan. Good to see everybody here in the chat. Of course, if you're listening in audio form, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. So coming up today, we're going to do we're doing our normal segments, normal show today. Takeaways from the Brewers series. The Tigers host Baltimore for 4 games starting tomorrow. And we'll also be talking a little bit. I was down in Toledo today, saw what I saw down with the Mud Hens, and we'll take a look around the league. Yes, Christopher in the YouTube chat, the NFL is overrated. Yes, but at the same time,
They're also highly rated.
Highly rated. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Highly lucrative.
No, so I was getting some film for some draft players, and for like the linebackers, they were breaking down the film, and they were literally just breaking down like how he was like pushing his arm out on like the other player. I'm like, that's how they were breaking down a player. I was like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, if I see another mock draft, I'll just again, it's if teach your own. It's not a big deal, but it's just funny to me because I just knew the full well. I was like, well, do I really? And then I know bandwidth wise around here, everyone's gonna be watching it around where I live. So that being said, it did not stop the Tigers from taking the series against the Brewers. The Third Coast, which is another nickname for Milwaukee, which I learned. I did not know that was the name of that's a nickname for Milwaukee as
it was just a nickname for the Midwest, like Michigan. Is it actually from Milwaukee? I'll be damned.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys know some trivia about. You guys know some trivia about Milwaukee?
Okay.
Milwaukee.
I know that.
Algonquin.
I know that Zilwaukee in Michigan was named that, so it would confuse people trying to get to Milwaukee. And
Chris,
go there. Yep.
Remember the drinking game every time? Wasn't it like you talking about Michigan?
Right. You guys got to drink. Got to drink because I mentioned Zilwaukee.
Yeah. So if you go to Milwaukee often, I was going to set up with a trivia line, but I totally failed. So there is it's the town with 3 socialist mayors. So there you go. Learn something new every day. But yeah, so the Tigers lost today 6-2, and it was a game that we saw really just kind of one bad inning that started off with the Brewers scoring 3 runs in the first. And the Tigers just kind of fell in a hole after that as Michael Lorenz it was an interesting inning, to say the least. What would you say, Uper?
About the series itself?
No, the first inning of today's outing was an interesting inning. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting inning. What are you going to do? I was listening to Dickerson. So I was getting the radio version of it. Just kind of a rough start, put the club, going uphill all day long, and you kind of could just see where this thing was going to go.
Yeah, and there was Javi Baez coming into the game had a hidden streak, but of course he gets hit by a pitch. X-rays did come out negative, so thankfully that's good for that because as soon as that happened immediately, because I was down in Toledo, it was a Ryan Kreidler watch while he was taking out a game, and he wasn't, by the way. So Toledo played a 2 doubleheader today because they had their game canceled yesterday. So it was 2 7-inning games, which threw me off because I thought they would be playing complete games. But anyway, it's the third time that the Tigers have gone to Milwaukee in the last 3 years have had some sort of collateral damage, if you will. I'm not sure what it is about Milwaukee and I don't know, but it's Jonathan Scope, Jacoby Jones, and who was the third one, Chris?
Well, so there was Jorge Bonifacio that got hit in that game
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, but Jacoby Jones was one who broke his hand, I think.
Yeah.
Like it was like, oh, we were experiencing the Jacoby Jones breakout, and then he broke his hand, and then that never happened. Yeah, and then today it was Baez. I don't know what it is. I mean, back then I think it was Phil Bickford, and he just had no control.
Yeah, it was. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I thought it was interesting that Tigers got hit in the first inning, and then a Brewer got hit in the first inning. But I don't think anything more became of that, right?
No, not really. It was just like Toledo. The offense became stagnant, and the Tiger. I mean, on the positive side of things, yes, they did take a couple of the big things for this series was that they won the series, and it kind of put things in perspective of what Detroit's season is, which is essentially just this up and down roller coaster. If we look at some of the podcast teams throughout since we started the season, it's been, you would think that we were on some sort of mental disorder because it's like this. It is like that, but it is the best start under the H.A. Hinch era so far. That's 9-14. I'll take it. So, but I'll start with you, John. Well, we're just going to simply put, since you guys did a show on Sunday, what was your 2 takeaways from the series?
My main takeaway would just be the bullpen. I think they've been really, really impressive. Tyler Holton gave up his first earned run since being called up. Mason Englert, I saw your tweet on him, Raj. He was really, really good in game 2 through 2 2/3 scoreless innings. I believe struck out 4 batters. And he's been, as good as advertised. Very solid walk rate, 5.6 walk percentage is what I looked up earlier today. And yeah, even Will Vest, who got absolutely rocked in spring training, has yet to give up an earned run. Only 2 1/3 innings pitched, but he did have, I believe he struck out the side in the inning he pitched today. And then obviously Jason Foley, probably been one of the stories for the Tigers of the year. His fastball velocity looks really, really good. Got the 4-out save, I believe, in game 2. And then Alex Lange, who hasn't been as good as he was last year, but has still been really, really solid. And the good part about that is guys like Mason Englert, guys like Jason Foley and Alex Lange, they're all under contract for many years to come and for pretty darn cheap too. So that would be my biggest takeaway. And then just for the Brewers, I don't know. They didn't really look like world beaters to me. They didn't really look like a team that's going to win their division and make a playoff run. I really wasn't all too impressed with them. Christian Yelich, this might be who he is now. I don't know what happened to that 2-year stretch where he was the best player in baseball and just absolutely carried the Brewers offense, but that's not really who he is anymore. And I like Rowdy Tellez, Willie Adames. They've got some decent hitters, got some young players coming up the system, but I wasn't all too impressed with them. And Freddie Peralta was impressive, though. So, yeah, good for the Tigers bullpen. And, yes, the offense still has its problems, but I'm sure you guys are going to get to that.
Oh, alrighty. Chris, what was your 2 takeaways from the Tigers this series?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think the bullpen is the big one, but since John already went over that, I'm going to say my takeaway is hooray for the law of averages. Sort of. It was part of the big problem of that losing streak was the Tigers were just absolutely brutal with runners in scoring position. Wasn't it something like 5 for 60? It was really, really bad. And it's not like they got crazy this week, but it just got kind of average. So I think they went 8 for 31, which is like a 260 average. But that's fine. If you do that, you're going to score some runs. They didn't score enough runs, but it was enough to win games with the way their pitching has been performing. So, yeah, I was excited about that. And let's see, another takeaway. I don't know, man. Yeah, it just feels like it still feels like something's missing. And I don't know if that's going to be a roster move. It does feel like we're trending toward that soon, but I don't know. I'll get more into that a little bit later when we get into our segments.
And what about you?
Well, I thought the more I watch this team, and I know others are saying this too, I just feel like more and more they're going to move to Jake Rogers catching even more than he is now. It just seems like I I like what I feel, and I can't quantify it. He just seems like he's a calming presence out there behind the plate for them, and he's producing at the plate. So I'm hopeful that he keeps playing more and more. The Tigers are at 9-14 right now, so they're on a 63 win pace. A little behind what we had for them, at least I had for them to start the year. You can see they're going to be streaky when you're scoring runs like this. They're averaging 3.04 runs per game. It's really going to be hard to be steady. When they get the pitching, they're going to win. When they don't, they're not. And it was nice to go on the road against a plus 500 team like the Brewers and take a couple wins. It was a lot of fun. It was a great time to watch this week, and hopefully they can figure out a way to split or better with the O's coming up here.
So there was two takeaways for me that are more specific, which is one is the use of the changeup by the Tigers. One of the things about the bullpen over the week was the fact that you saw that among Mason Engler and Alex Lang was usage of the changeup and how effective it was. And I'll go a little bit more into later in my inside numbers, but the reason why I bring that up is because Lang and both Lang and Engler are among the top 20 in vertical movement on their changeup versus the average. So breaks down a little bit more, but that's good for a team that really is trying to find the top of the strike zone. So what I thought they did a really good job. Both relievers did a fantastic job of changing the eye level, setting up that high fastball to go within that changeup that had some really good break to it. So that was my big takeaway. The other takeaway I had for the series, and I know his numbers are not exactly all-star. He was 2 for 10 for the series, was Zach McKinstry, who I thought came up with a couple hits right at the right time. His defense is good. Tigers are, again, let me just reiterate that. Yes, I know he went 2 for 10. That's not great. But at the same time, his defense was good. And he was able to change double play. And with the flexibility the Tigers kind of had, well, not flexibility, they were kind of forced into a weird situation today where towards the end of the game, they had to put in a shortstop late, and the scope ended up being a shortstop. So that was something where you're talking about a roster move. This is where the roster flexibility and ability to play multiple positions came in handy today. And then lastly, really, was Riley Green has been getting kind of focused on a little bit. And I saw a stat that was interesting. I think it was WRC plus career right now, and Craig Carpenter has a better one. I think it was that stat. But yes, and now I agree with Alex there. Scope had some really good at bats. Again, I know people want him off the team so bad for whatever reason. I do not understand. It is such a strange. We want Scope out of there.
Yeah, he has become the sacrificial lamb. There's no doubt.
I think we talked about it last show about there's just the familiarity breeds contempt thing going on with the fans right now. Like, if you've been on this team for any length of time, everyone hates you and wants you gone. I saw it today. I had a whole big thing with Akil Baddoo today because I keep seeing, and I see this all the time on our minor league account where we post something that Justin Henry Malloy does, and everybody's like, cool, call him up, send Baddoo down. And I'm like, why Baddoo? Why not any of the other 10 people who are not performing? What is it about Baddoo that everybody hates? And I think it's just because he's been here for 3 years. That's all I keep. But in any event, yeah. So like one thing we know about Jonathan Scope is he can hit the ball hard, and when he starts hitting the ball hard and gets hot, he can be very helpful. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he starts playing a little bit more, particularly with Baez maybe nursing that hand for a day or two.
And Baddoo, by the way, went 2 for 7 in the series. He had 2 doubles today. And both balls were hit hard. I don't.
The other day he was lead off and he walked twice.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thinks that he's a superstar or anything like that. But it's like criticizing him while not yelling about Maton or Vierling or Green or Torkelson or Baez or Scope. Like, it's a bad offense. But I think people just get tired of seeing the same faces for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's the thing too. Is that there was it was an interesting comp that came up with Justin Henry Malloy today. By the way, before I forget, that he looked like Delming Young. Somebody was like, "Oh, he looks like Delming Young." What?
I can think of one thing that would make that comp happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Stan,
he doesn't throw like Delming Young.
Oh yeah, no, he throws better
Yeah,
than
he's got a pretty
Romeo.
good arm. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Such a crappy comp. What the hell is that? I mean, come on. Anyway,
yeah, but to what Chris said about you said something is missing. To me, what instantly came to my head was Torkelson and Riley Green, because weren't they supposed to be the guys that take the step forward and kind of carry this offense? To me, that's what's missing is those two guys were supposed to be the faces of this rebuild, and so far they haven't been.
Absolutely. And to me, I've always been, not always, but I've been a little less convinced that Torque is going to be that piece, at least right now. But I thought Riley Green was going to be a guy who took a step forward this year and didn't have this kind of strange sophomore slump where he's not hitting the ball hard and he's hitting it on the ground, and it's just a bizarre turn of events. But I don't know. I mean, the more we follow baseball, the less it makes sense. You talked about Christian Yelich, right? Like, yeah, he went from hitting 80 home runs and stealing 60 bases and hitting 330 for 2 years to now barely hitting like 220 with no power. Nothing makes sense.
I think that there's something that the more I think about it, the more it's a lot of pressure to put these guys as quote unquote the face of the franchise. So to me, it's going to take a while. Like I was talking about this today with Tiger Mike, who I have to thank him 100 times over because he invited me down to the Toledo game today. He asked me if I wanted to go when we sat through the doubleheader, and it was good to talk to him. But there's for some of our older audience out there, and I actually applied for 2 generations of Tiger fans here. In the early 80s, everybody didn't want Kirk Gibson on his team. And from 80 to 83, it took him a while before Kirk Gibson became Kirk Gibson. Mm-hmm. And there was I go through some of the newspaper archives, and you see fans letters to the newspaper. Kirk Gibson's garbage. He should have played football. It's going to take some time. Do I think that they should have been, some sort of progress? I mean, but look at Jared Kelenic as an example. I mean, we could look at that all day. If Green doesn't, I'll be more concerned next year if this is happening at the same time. If there's if they struggle all year long, it's only April, folks. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it right now because this team is winning when they can, despite an offense that is basically puttering like a bad engine. It's a bad offense right now, and they're able to overcome that. And then, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you finish your point. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It was just going to say, and then a more recent example was Nick Castellanos. Castellanos also struggled early on too.
That was going to be my point.
Yeah.
So yeah, good work.
Thank you. But Castellanos struggled early on, and everybody wanted him down too. So it's like this. I get it. Look, losing sucks and makes you impatient. I get it. It makes sense, and I'm not disputing any of that anger of that, And I thought, and Tyler brings it up in the chat here. It's a good point where he says, I think the Athletic did a good job of analyzing Riley, saying that he's being approached very seriously by other pitchers because he has the highest ceiling on the team, and he's right. I mean, there's a certain approach to each time Riley Green bats, and he has to do the proper adjustments. He's growing a mustache out. And when he was asked about it, he's like, "Don't worry about it." Well, that Riley Green, even in the clubhouse, when he's in there, he's loose, he's singing, he's out there. And so I think, again, to finish my point, really, it's a lot of pressure to put these guys as the quote unquote faces. Why? I don't know why we have to put a face on the franchise right now.
It's just, well, that's the way that Al Avila built it, right? Like these were the stars. These were the top 25, top 10 prospects. And they were going to build around those guys with some veterans. And yeah, it takes time. Like your point, yeah, Castellanos was not a positive, like a plus WRC player until his 3rd full season. Right. He was like 90, 95 the first 2 years. Now it'd be nice to get Torkelson up to 90 and Green up to 100 or so. But yeah, it does take time, and people need to be patient. It's just one of the really annoying things, I think, is when you see other prospects rated in the same realm come up and immediately pop, like Julio Rodriguez or Corbin Carroll, right? Like these guys just come up and they're doing their thing, and it's like but then today the interesting thing, and people are pointing this out, Jordan Walker was sent down by the Cardinals today.
Yes, he was.
Now these are 2 teams in completely different spots. If Jordan Walker were on the Tigers, he might be their 2nd best hitter right now. But the Cardinals are trying to win, and they are not doing that right now, and they want, for lack of a better term, Jordan Walker's a luxury for them. They don't need him to be the face of the franchise at the cornerstone. They need him to be a productive hitter, so they're trying somebody else right now. It's not going to harm his development. But Yeah, I don't know. But to Raj's overall point, yes, it is still April too. So there's always that.
Exactly. I was going to chime in on that too. It is just April. I mean, so many things we can say it's just April, and it's true. There's a long way to go. But back to John's point about Torkelson and Green. Yes, given the lack of alternatives, they were the two, guys we all wanted to see take steps forward and hopefully carry the offense. But that is a huge burden to put on two young guys like that. That's why I love him. I love Lynn Henning. He and I had a Twitter back and forth this past weekend. My opinion on that is they should have had veterans in place around them so that, yes, we could monitor Torkelson and Green and hope for the best, but they didn't have to carry a major league offense. Okay. Lynn's idea is you build this core and then you add the veterans into the core. I think what we're seeing, sadly, is what can happen. We're seeing a 3-run offense because we're expecting these second-year guys to, drag the train along, and it's not quite. They're not up to it yet, and that doesn't mean they won't be, but they're not there.
By the way, Perry with one of the best comments of the night. Tigers Twitter watches this team with a football mentality. Amen. Because that is one thing that, as much as we embrace Tigers Twitter, it's part of our subculture. It's part of our chat. It's part of everything we do on Discord. Sometimes the complaining about the lineup sometimes on a daily basis does not make any sense to me. It doesn't compute. Who else is he going to put out there? And I don't know. It's been that way for a long time. We complain about this. This is if we're doing the beer drinking game for anybody, those guys who were the regular listeners who were talking about that, you can put that on the card too, because I've been saying that for a long time. So there's nothing new there. So you're absolutely right. And that's why the NFL, that's why we're doing the show, not on NFL draft night.
Yeah.
For that reason. So
yeah, I mean, that was especially after when that losing streak was coming and people were just like, oh, we got to make a roster move. We got to make like 5 roster moves. And it's just like, settle down.
That's not baseball.
No, baseball. It's such a long season that, and I think that's the biggest difference between fans in baseball and like executives in baseball is they know that they're going to be, getting up in the morning and playing baseball again tomorrow, and they know that they can just wash it away. And fans, it sticks with us, and we get upset, and we want vengeance, and we want our pound of flesh. And the players know how hard baseball is. So do the managers and the executives. They know how things, are a wave. So, we're not even we're barely over 20 games. We're like an eighth into the season.
Yeah.
Like two football games, right?
This is a good point here by Stan in the chat. Does anybody remember that Jordan Walker was the same draft class as Torque?
I do.
Yeah, Chris did.
But I'm a draft nerd.
Yeah. But I think this was a good conversation because I think that at the end of the day, that's what this team is missing is those guys that can carry this offense, whether it is the veterans that they decide to bring in or those young guys taking the next step. Because the pitching has been there, and that's the frustrating part too, is the Central is just not – it's not a good division, and the Tigers are still only, I believe, a game or two out of second place. But yeah, like that's what they're missing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of what they had a couple of years ago with like Robbie Grossman. Like that was the sort of player that we wanted to be around the young player.
Whoa, you just died out, Chris. Your voice just.
Hey, something just said Mike is muted on my screen.
Oh, weird. All right, you're good now. Say it again.
I
I'm sorry.
for a second.
I was just saying that the Robbie Grossman, what he did 2 years ago was exactly the sort of player you want around these young guys. And then last year when the young guys showed up, Robbie Grossman disappeared. So did Jonathan Scope. Like the guys we thought were going to be like decent, average MLB regulars just disappeared too. So yeah, it's inexplicable.
It's baseball. And I wish there's a better explanation than that, but that is. So it's time for Inside the Numbers. All right, so I had time today to actually put up new music and put up a new intro. So if everybody on YouTube saw the new intro for Inside Numbers, I hope you all liked it. So, Uper, I'll start with you. What is your inside number this week?
My numbers are 186, 254, 310. As you can probably tell, that's a slash line. That is not a slash line for the last 13 games of a Chicago White Sox. That is the slash line for the last 13 games of the Chicago White Sox. All of them. They're hitting 186, 254, 310 as a team. The offense is just wilted en masse. And, they're on a 7-game losing streak. They're averaging, 3.8 runs per game, which is better than Detroit, but still sucks. And they're 1-9 in their last 10 games. So the White Sox, I made the comment the other day, Tony La Russa's back somewhere. He's thinking, hey, it wasn't my fault. And they are really struggling. And, for a team that has some A-list talent at certain parts of their lineup and their rotation, it's not coming together. It's very surprising. So, and their offense is at the center of it.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this on the last pod about like their GM getting another rebuild. To me, this, them trying to compete per se, they haven't won one playoff series in this era of trying to compete. They lost in the first round in 2020 and they lost in the first round in 2021. So if this is the end of their competitive window and they go into like a retool or a rebuild, I can't see their GM getting another shot, another rebuild, because it was a failure. They didn't win a single playoff series and they had expectations to win a World Series.
I saw a Chicago guy make a tweet that Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner, if this continues, that Rick Hahn is going to get a very stern talking to.
Ooh. But here's the thing, and you know what? I'm glad that Jed's in here because Jed UK can attest to this. It's like clockwork, and Chris too. You can always expect the White Sox to fall apart. It is like clockwork since 06, since 05, since they won the World Series. They build up a mass amount of talent, and then they have to sell it off for parts. That's what's going to happen soon. And Jose Abreu saw the writing on the wall, and he was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to go to Houston, where they're collecting Cuban talent like it's going out of style. And I'm going to go to a winner. Chicago is Chicago until Jerry Ryan's or whatever happens in that front office to get rid of the Kenny Williams, because Kenny Williams still works there too. And he was the architect for that 05 World Series team. And he kept that team around. But there is White Sox. You think Tiger fans on Twitter are bad? Holy cow. Look at White Sox fan on Twitter. Even before the game today, it is like we follow a lot of White Sox blogs, so it comes up on my feed a lot. And yeah, it's Jeb with the comment on YouTube. You mean the record signing, the signing of Andrew Vinatieri didn't put him over the edge? No. They have a terrible farm system. I can go on and on and on about that. But like clockwork, you could expect the White Sox to fall apart. It's as simple as that. I'm not surprised. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, yeah, I mean, and to your point, I've been thinking about this within the context of Eduardo Rodriguez, that the White Sox, if they fall out of it for sure and not competing, they're going to probably trade Tim Anderson, probably trade Lucas Giolito, probably trade Lance Lynn. Would they trade Dylan Cease? If they did, he'd probably get them a king's ransom. They could be one of those things where once again they suddenly go from a middling to bad MLB team to a terrible MLB team, but suddenly a top 10 farm system again. And then here we are 5 years later, and they're rebuilding for the fourth time. So yeah, I don't know. I've seen the White Sox do this before too, and then they'll kind of claw their way back up to 500, and people will be like, oh, maybe they've got a chance. And then around the All-Star game, they'll start to fall apart again. It's just the way it goes. So
yeah,
I don't feel terribly bad for them.
No, and who's making fun of Lance Lynn? Wait, somebody was ragging about Lance Lynn.
Steve Stone.
Of course, Steve Stone. Steve Stone. You know what? I understand why White Sox fans hate him on Twitter. He is a smug individual. You could tell he's one of those people. You could tell that wrote his own Wikipedia page, because if you go to his Wikipedia, do yourself a favor. Go to Steve Stone's Wikipedia page, and he wrote it. You could tell he wrote it.
I think we've done that before, haven't we? Man, he won 7 different awards for.
Things that I never heard of, or I'm sorry, most baseball fans do not care about. But he does
He was
not
best
like.
dressed or something.
He is the quickest blocker. I mean, if you're talking about like all-time blocking leader champion on Twitter, Steve Stone's it. So would they trade Hendricks? I mean,
I think they would.
Yeah.
I mean, if he comes back,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like I said, a closer will get you a value at the deadline. They could trade a ton of stuff. Like Kopech, is he ever going to be anything? They could trade him. They could trade damn near the whole roster. Moncada, if they want to, like Eloy Jimenez, they could.
Andrew Vaughn.
It could be a fire sale of all fire sales if they go that route. But again,
Yeah.
do you want to let Rick Hahn and Ken Williams do that? I don't think so.
no.
And then are you talking about getting a new GM and a new president in the middle of the season? I don't know.
Yeah, everybody talks about how bad the Tigers are. Just the White Sox are far worse off. John, what is your inside number?
So mine, if I could brag a little bit, is my NL Cy Young pick, Zach Gallen. 28. 28 is my number. 28. He has a 28 inning scoreless streak. Started off the season, got rocked his first 2 starts, 9 earned runs in his first 2 starts. Since then, in his last 4 starts, hasn't given up an earned run. And yeah, this is actually not even his longest scoreless streak. Last year, he had a 44 and a third inning scoreless streak. That was when he went absolutely ballistic in the second half. And yeah, I mean, he was traded for Jazz Chisholm. I would say the Diamondbacks are probably winning that trade right now. And I mean, for the Diamondbacks, people had expectations for them to maybe compete in the NL West. I think that's going to be a tough task with the Dodgers and the Padres, but he's going to be at top of that rotation. And I think he's one of the best pitchers in baseball and just entering the prime of his career. So really good stuff from him. I'm a little worried what they have, other than him in that rotation. That's kind of my worry with them. But for Zach Gallen, he's absolutely on fire right now. And it was my pick for Cy Young. So I'm pretty happy.
If I can piggyback on that, in those 27 scoreless innings, he's given up 11 hits and 1 walk to 41 strikeouts. And why do I know that? Because Zach Gallen was my good this week.
Oh.
But no, he has been very good. So that's that's he was your good as well. We're all
Come on, guys.
We're all chugging the Gallen. This is podcasting. This is what we do. We don't tell each other what we're going to do before.
This is very organic.
I think we got to stop doing that because at this point it's happening it's happening too much now lately. So maybe we should.
4 of us and Zach Gallen.
But I can always.
What else are we supposed to say?
What do you mean we're supposed to say? There's so many other things you guys
6 and
can
a
talk
third
about.
innings, 12 strikeouts today. That's good. He's been very good. But anyway,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've got an inside the number that nobody's mentioned.
All right.
It's 27. And this is where we get nerdy because today Baseball Savant unveiled a new metric / leaderboard, which is catcher caught stealing rate, basically. Which this is something people have known for a long time, but most steals are not on the catcher specifically. They're kind of it's a tandem thing with the pitcher, how quickly the pitcher gets the ball to the plate. And now they've gone and used all their various data to quantify that. So they take into account how fast the runner is, how far off of first base he is, or how close he is to second.
Wow.
And where the pitch location and pitch speed is. So they factor all that in, plug it into their algorithm, and see how often a pitch like that is turned into a caught stealing. And then it becomes like, so hey, this only 10% of the time does that runner get caught. Well, so if the catcher catches him, he gets 0.9 basically catching caught stealings above average. And you take that for years and years and years, and you put it all together, and you get the number 1 catcher in catcher runs saved, if you will, since 2016 at 27. Do you guys care to guess who that catcher is?
In 2017, you said?
Since 2016, he's 27 runs above, average for caught stealing alone.
Real Muto.
Correct. He is number 1 by a good margin. And that's always a good test for your metric, right? If the guy you think should be number 1 is number 1, hey, good work. On the opposite end of the spectrum, negative 27, the worst at that since 2016, Kurt Suzuki.
Yes.
I was actually seriously going to guess Kurt Suzuki. I kid you not.
Yeah, no, I believe it. What about for the Tigers since 2016? Who do you think leads the Tigers in
the best one?
Yeah, since 2016.
McCann.
No. I'll go. Crap. I'm trying to think of like catchers that. I'll go Jake Rogers.
Not Alex Avila.
Alex Avila was pretty much average. He was James McCann. I heard John start to say that.
Hey.
McCann,
I forgot about
7
Camden there.
7 runs. Rogers is number 2 with 3 in far fewer opportunities than McCann. So his
the worst John Hicks, right?
Nope.
No, really, not John Hicks.
Wilson
Wow.
Ramos.
Nope. He wasn't around long enough.
Yeah, he wasn't long. Yeah.
Grayson Griner.
Think long about this one.
Long
about this one.
Long.
Jared Saltalamacchia.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Negative 3. The long name. That's what I was going for.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. That's implied.
So there you go.
I wasn't sure where you were playing there.
Yeah, one of these days. That's gonna be my final inside the number ever. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, though, 27 runs over 7 years is not a big deal at all, right? Like, you can save that through framing. A good framer can do that in a year and a half, and that makes sense, though, right? Like, you might get 60 opportunities to throw somebody out over the course of a year, whereas you'll get, as a catcher, you're getting 150, 200 pitches per game. So it really is a minor thing, but it is kind of cool to have another leaderboard to play with if you want.
Yeah, the more information, the better. I just think that overall it just makes the entire experience of watching baseball, understanding the subtle nuances of everything a lot better. So, but yeah, so my inside number is there's 3 of them. It's the number 13, 17, and 20th, and that is the numbers. That is the number of where the Alex Lang, Spencer Trimble, and Mason Engler are ranked among vertical movement in changeups. So Lang has a 5-point versus the league average. So Lang is number 13, 5.1. You have Turnbull at 4.5 and Engler at 4.3. The leader of this, by the way, is Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies, the lefty. And it's not, who's up there in the top 5, by the way, is also former Tiger Buck Farmer at number 5 at 7.2.
He always had a good changeup.
Yeah, he always did. Just didn't have terrible command. But again, this was something I mentioned at the top of the show, discussing how the Tigers are using the changeup to go along with the fastball. And something I was talking to Chris about offline a couple days ago about there was an article in Fangraphs about slider usage and everything. And it looks like the Tigers have found a use with their changeup. And that is their main pitch to go to. So something pointed out, I'm going to do an article about it tomorrow and just kind of go into it a little bit and why that pitch works so well in sequencing, because I think that you have a couple guys with arms that can throw a fastball. I mean, Foley throws a heavy sinker type fastball, and you have that with combine that makes for a very good combination of, I said combination, that sounded really redundant, but what I was trying to say was, as far as that in terms of the speed wise too, Foley's ranked number 5, by the way, and there's a bonus one, and 91.6. Former Tiger Gregory Soto's number 1. So, but that being said, anyway, in terms of average speed on his changeup, but that changeup does so much because if it's looking the same way as a fastball, you pull the string on it. It's just simply put as pulling the string, and it makes it, So you can't beat that.
To answer Jeremy's question in the chat about, Javi just answered 80% is about what Jason Foley's ground ball percentage is.
All right.
That's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Now it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, that one I'm not happy. Or that one, I don't know. That graphic's going to take some time. I wanted to do an old Western one, but I couldn't find anything that was that worked as of yet. But if you guys like that one, that's fine too on YouTube, or anybody who's listening, if they like the intro of that, let me know.
There was a question in the chat about how many years of control we have.
Again, I just want to keep it moving. I'll get to that. We'll as the questions go on, we'll get to them. So a question that Dom had was, how many years of control does Jason Foley have? And he is signed through right now in terms of his rookie. His rookie contract was in 2020. He is a free agent in 2028. So he's arbitration eligible in 2025. So, All right. So it's now time the good, the bad, and the ugly. Uper, what is yours?
Well, I was going to go with Zach Gallen, but it sounds like we've had a lot of Zach Gallen talk, so we'll move on from him. Other than to say consecutive starts of 6 innings or more with 11 Ks or more with 0 walks and 0 runs, 3 other names in history have done it. Clayton Kershaw, pretty good guy. Nolan Ryan, not bad. And Cy Young is the other one. So he's on our list with Cy Young, Clayton Kershaw, Nolan Ryan. That's pretty good work out of Zach Gallen. But I digress. We'll go. I had a lot more on him. For me, just on the fly here, I got to listen to Dan Dickerson this weekend. It's first time this year because the Brewers are blacked out here in Iowa. Dickerson's on top of his game as usual. Just a great listen. The new guy, Bobby Scales, right? Is that his name?
Yeah, Bobby Scales, yeah.
Yeah, he was great. I love old Mr. Jim Price, but it's nice to have a new voice on there. I think it's going to reinvigorate Dan Dickerson for a long time as well. So as much as I hate the blackout, it does force me to listen to radio once in a while, and I'm really blessed that we have a good guy with the Tigers. My bad. AL Central run scoring. Let's go over this. 4 of the bottom 5 offenses reside in the American League Central. Cleveland is the White Sox are 12th, Cleveland 13th, Royals 14th, Tigers 15th in the American League in runs per game. So the Tigers are at 3.04. Only the Twins bust out of the bottom 5, and they're all the way up at 9th. So the AL Central is just not putting runs on the board. When we talk about how bad the Tigers offense is, and it is, the other teams in this division, they're not shaking up scoreboards either. So it's going to be quite the race this summer. In Detroit, maybe one thing, if we look back, maybe I was wrong about in the spring with the rest of the division being so mediocre. Maybe they can hang around. Who knows? Because none of them can score. My ugly. A good thing that happened this weekend, I think, for most people would think, was Brian Reynolds signed the first $100 million contract with the Pittsburgh Pirates this year.
That's a lot of booty. Pirates.
Very nice. I like it. So, yeah, that was their first $100 million contract. So that leaves 3 organizations that have never proffered any player a $100 million contract. That would be your Chicago White Sox, your Kansas City Royals, and probably not surprising, the Oakland A's. The one surprising not on the list is Tampa. They had one with, I think, Longoria. So, but the 3 teams that are still cheaping out, A's, Royals, Sox, haven't offered that big contract. They just haven't made that big commitment to get, premium talent into their organization.
All right, that's a good one. I like that. We're doing a lot of AL Central bashing this evening. Mm-hmm. John, what is your good, bad, the ugly this week?
So my good was originally going to be the Twins pitching, but Uper brought up a guy by the name of Clayton Kershaw. And I was looking at his numbers the other day. Obviously, he just got his 200th win. Clayton Kershaw, I don't know what it is about him, but he's fantastic. And I feel like he just doesn't get talked about enough. I was looking at his numbers. Clayton Kershaw since 2009 has had 2 seasons with an ERA over 3. 2 seasons since 2009. His ERA has been under 3 every single year except for 2 years since 2009. He had 3.03 in 2019 and 3.55 in 2021. Other than that, every single year it's been under 3. He's been so fantastic for so long. I think
he doesn't get a lot of the credit. Obviously West.
Who?
What happened? You freeze up?
Yeah, froze up there.
Okay. Well,
I'm gonna get rid of that face because I don't want him to be stuck on that face.
I think he was gonna say West Coast games people miss, right? Because
all right, there you go. Sorry, I had to take you off the screen because you were like this face. So I didn't. So go ahead. You were saying.
Well, I was just gonna say, Clayton Kershaw, the West Coast thing. People missed a lot of his starts, and then early in his career, especially his playoff record wasn't great, and I was kind of held against him. But he's a wonderful pitcher. He's number one, number two of his generation.
Well, yeah, that was my question: is where does he rank all time for starting pitchers? Because I mean, he's been so good for so long. He's got to be top 10 starting pitcher of all time, maybe top 5. Like,
It depends because of it depends on if you're counting the things that
Yeah.
shouldn't count, like the
Yeah.
pre-integration dead ball era where Cy Young is throwing 90 games a year. But yeah, like since the 40s or 50s, I would think top 10 up there. It depends on, with pitchers, it's kind of like, what's your flavor? Like a lot of people love Nolan Ryan, despite he was never, he walked a ton of guys. He was super dominant at times, but he was never like a great pitcher, if you will. Whereas Kershaw is kind of the second coming of Sandy Koufax, but actually with a more lengthy career. And then, of course, here I think in Detroit, people would mention Justin Verlander as one of the best pitchers of his era. You go to Seattle and people talk about Felix Hernandez, had a great run. But I think Scherzer, yeah, Scherzer's up there. But then when we were coming up and, we had Clemens, and who's, of course, been tainted by steroids. People always talk about Greg Maddux and the Randy Johnson. And I don't know, you could suddenly expand that to like 2025 guys. Tom Seaver, Steve Carlton, Bob Gibson. But yeah, I mean, I think that Kershaw is certainly top 10 worthy. It just depends on how you want to break everything down.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would just say a little underrated because his consistency is just crazy to me. But my original good was just the Twins starting pitching. Sonny Gray's looked like the best starter in the American League so far, and Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez. Very good big three for them in Minnesota. My bad. I'm going to go with the San Diego Padres offense. Right now, they're 24th in baseball with a 670 OPS. Fernando Tatis Jr. hasn't really gotten going yet since he's returned. And Manny Machado only has 1 home run in 96 at-bats. I believe they're playing right now, so that might be a bat or two off. But yeah, OPS is just above 500 for Machado, and obviously we know he got that big contract. And yeah, Juan Soto hasn't lit the world on fire either. So Bogarts has been good for them. Yeah, don't know how worried I'd be with their offense, so I think we're expecting it to bounce back. I'd be a little more worried about their pitching depth. But yeah, their offense hasn't been great to start the year. And then my ugly would just be Tyler Nevin. Has really, really struggled. And it's unfortunate because he was a guy I wanted us to obviously give an opportunity to. And he's gotten that opportunity and he just hasn't been able to take advantage of it. 1 for 19 on the season, 6 strikeouts. The game I went to, he had a really good at-bat against Emmanuel Clase. That's probably been the highlight of his season so far, other than his 1 hit. And, yeah, Tyler Nevin, he's on the hot seat, I feel, with a lot of fans right now. Obviously, there's a difference between what the fans want and what they're actually going to do. But, yeah, he's really struggled out of the game.
32 of all time, but it's counting guys I shouldn't talk about WAR there for Clayton Kershaw. Bonus, by the way, of the good, the bad, the ugly, and this comes from our longtime listener, Tim Van Dyke, who been trying to find me on emails, and I apologize, Tim, and I'm just getting your email today, so this might seem a little dated, but if you do want to send in your good, the bad, the ugly, feel free to send it to Tigers SRD. I know I'm giving you guys a lot of, I still got to change that too, but nevertheless, if you, I'm sorry, actually, you know what? No, screw it. You can go to the tigersmlreport@gmail. Excuse me. Let me try that again. You can email us at tigersmlreport@gmail.com. So if you have a good and bad, the ugly, and you do not use social media or you're not on YouTube, by all means, send it there. tigersmlreport@gmail.com.
Okay.
So that being said, so Tim's this might seem a little dated, but I think it works out pretty well, actually. His good was Jace Young hitting a bomb the center on Friday, April 21st, one of the longest home runs he's seen at LMCU Park. And he got that. He said the Whitecap tickets in April are $1. So, wow, he got really good value for his deal there. That's a good one. The sad AJ, who was way smarter than me, chose to stay with Tyler Nevin the 9th on April 19th with Cabby on the bench. 4A player with a career average of 200 over Miguel Cabrera. Not criticizing AJ, just sad that it's come to this. That's a fair one. I like that one. And the ugly Chris Ellige's lack of spending. Tell Uper to keep preaching it. So Uper, you have orders from Tim.
I'm here for you, Tim.
Yeah,
I got
everybody
you,
drink.
man.
So I actually had one more I wanted to touch on. I was thinking about doing it, but then I was afraid to say it, but it's kind of relevant. Brian Reynolds, his extension. I think it's a good thing for Brian Reynolds. I'm worried with the Pirates that they're going to talk themselves into being competitive. And remember what they did when they thought they were competitive and they traded for Chris Archer.
Yeah, people start going to games and stuff.
Yeah, they traded for Chris Archer.
That was one of the worst trades of the last 15 years.
Yeah, and that's what I'm worried about. Is I'm worried that they are going to talk themselves into we can compete now and try to win now. Because I think Brian Reynolds, they should trade him and get a king's ransom for him. So
Look, honestly, that's way too. That's like 800 pieces. That's 800 chess moves away. I don't really think that for that. Look, if you're a Pirates fan today, you're celebrating the fact that A, you're competitive, B, you signed a long-term block to be a long-term player to a deal, and C, you're not the Kansas City Royals or you're not the Oakland A's. Simple as that. I mean, Pittsburgh deserves a winner, and the Pirate fans are some of the most loyal fan base, and they have suffered a lot, and they've won a lot. So it's, to me, I don't understand why we have to also assume that we have to trade somebody again when just let them enjoy the moment.
Well, in my opinion, if they do trade Brian Reynolds, they probably can get a lot. That's a very tradable deal. There's no question about it. But I don't think you can look back and say, "Oh, we had this trade that was an abject disaster," which it was, and that means, well, we're never going to do it again.
Exactly.
Okay. I
There's
think
different front office.
it is a different front office, and also, they've been bad for so long. They've been playing the draft and development game, and what's it got them? Okay. Now they have an inkling that they have a chance here where maybe they can compete. Although, again, it's April. They could die tomorrow, but we'll see. If they get into July and they're still there, go for it. Give it a shot. What have they got to lose? They have sucked for a long time. If it gets torpedoed and they don't do well, so what?
Yeah.
They've sucked forever and they suck again. They got the shot at winning. Let's go for it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they have a much stronger farm system. I mean, they obviously gave away 3 really good prospects in that.
They did. It was
bad. Meadows, Glasnow, and Baz. Was that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember that Baz was like the player to be named later, and everybody was like, "What?" But yeah, I feel like they could survive going for it this year, and even if they don't, they feel more like the Orioles from last year, right? Where they probably will not, even if they stay in it, they probably won't make a move because they feel like they're not ready, and they're probably right about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. To me, I thought Reynolds got less than he should have.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it was basically a hometown discount there or whatever.
Or
good for Pittsburgh, but
or collusion. Think about it. He wanted to trade. No, think about it for a moment. Just irresponsible speculation. Just purely 100% irresponsible speculation. He wanted to trade out of Pittsburgh, and no one made an offer that the Pirates liked. Okay, right. I don't believe that for a minute.
Supposedly the Pirates had a very high asking price, which I don't know.
So is that yeah.
It just depends. Like I wonder if people view Brian Reynolds as the sort of guy who it's odd. It may be that the Pirates both value him more than other teams, but also don't want to pay him as much as other teams, which is a strange place to be. But I don't know. It's just one of those things where we just see everybody doing these long-term deals. Everybody, except for the Tigers, and I don't necessarily blame the Tigers, right? Because who are you going to give that long-term deal right now? I don't know if maybe if Skubal had been healthy, you'd do that, but doing that for pitchers, I don't know. So yeah.
Let the Pirates have their moment. That's all I say. You got to give them. That's a beautiful stadium. Give them something to root for. All right, Chris. What is your good, bad, the ugly this week?
So I did a bonus good since it's not Zach Gallen, and I'm gonna stick with the Tigers here and talk about our old friend Kiter Montero. This is more of a minor league thing, but Kiter Montero, another excellent outing today. The Tigers are still holding everybody to 4 innings tops, other than Sawyer Gibson-Long.
Yeah, for whatever
5
reason.
innings.
Yeah.
So, and Montero is not generally mentioned as one of the top pitching prospects in the system, but he's got a really good arm. He sits 93, 95. He's up to 97. He can spin it. We talked about it before. We had him at 3,000 RPMs a couple times with his breaking ball, which is elite territory. And there's some reliever risk there, but given his delivery and his size and stuff like that. But his last 2 outings, 8 innings, 3 hits, 0 runs, 0 walks, 15 strikeouts. That's pretty damn good. Now it is high A, but he's 22, so he's age appropriate. And I was thinking Erie may need a starter this Sunday because they had to do kind of a bullpen start on Tuesday because their scheduled starter had some issues, is what we heard. We don't know anything beyond that. And the one who would fit to come up from Erie would probably be Carlos Pena because he also pitched on Tuesday, I believe, and that would make some sense. But it wouldn't shock me if Montero eventually pushes away to Erie if he continues pitching like this. So that's good. That's a good news for the Tiger. Maybe he's this year's Wilmer Flores, or somebody who really takes that next step.
We have on our breakout list too.
Yeah, that would be nice to see. So my bad, and this is kind of, we've touched on this a little bit, kind of in a roundabout way, but the Tigers' offense, and I don't think anybody watching the show needs to know this, that the Tigers' offense is bad, but it's still kind of, I think, merits looking at the numbers because they're very bad indeed. So they are tied as a team with the lowest batting average with San Diego, as John mentioned, 214 this year batting average. Second worst on base percentage, 278, and the worst slugging percentage at 328. All good for the second worst WRC plus of 70. Only the Royals are worse. And it's interesting. You know who put up numbers similar to that last year? 214, 278, 328. Spencer Torkelson. That was his season last year, basically. He hit a little bit worse, walked a little bit more, hit for less power. So, it's like, when people said Spencer Torkelson was the future of the Tigers, they were technically correct in like the worst sort of monkey paw way, where the entire team has become Spencer Torkelson from last year. It sucks. So get better. And my ugly is Marcell Ozuna. He's been a negative WAR player and a negative person for many years now. The past 3 seasons. This year, he's hitting .073 with 2 homers. That is a 4 for 55, I believe he is this year. So, Braves just cut him, right? Except he's owed $18 million this year and $18 million next year and a $1 million buyout. So, yeah, you're looking at possibly the worst player in baseball.
Good work if you can get it.
Yeah, eat $40 million to get rid of him. So that's an ugly situation there for Atlanta. I don't think it's hurting them too much, but I'm sure they'd love to do something about that.
Yeah, it's something where along the lines of like the Tigers' offense for a moment. They're talking about. I just want to get this out of the way about Justin Henry Malloy. So today I saw him down in Toledo, and he extended his hitting streak in the first game, and then second game he struggled. The Mets, I have a guy by the name of Curtis, I think it was. I'm not sure who that guy. Curtis.
John Curtis, I think his name is.
That guy was the best pitcher I've seen on both sides down there today. Excuse me. And they started pitching Malloy away, and he was doing a lot of swing and miss. They jammed him on the inside, and the numbers are there. I mean, if they wanted to, but they would have to make a move and obviously get rid of Nevin. But the bottom line is, I think against advanced pitching, at first he would struggle. I saw it today. I mean, Curtis was throwing some nasty sliders, and Malloy had no chance. In fact, nobody on the Mud Hens lineup had a chance at all. And so that is a theme that we've been noticing even in Erie, where in terms of like just offense, in terms of offensive numbers, the Tigers are striking out quite a bit. And so that's just something to look out for, that if you're thinking Malloy is going to be the next, it's going to cause, if he's going to help out the offense eventually, but for now, I just would rather them wait and see because it's still too early in the season. But also, this is not like JD Martinez, who had 10 home runs in the first 3 or 4 games in Toledo, where he adjusted his swing and then the Tigers call him on the rest of his history. I want to see more power from Malloy before there's a call up. So there was Stan, by the way, has his surprise is good as Carlos Pena.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. What?
No, well,
he's a pitcher for the West Michigan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Carlos and Stan's tunes in on Sunday nights to our minor league recap. I cannot talk today, And so it makes a lot of sense. The bad for him is like Pacheco, which he's in a real struggle right now since the Lansing series, as Chris pointed out earlier, and ugly is Jonathan Scope for him. What were you going to say, Chris?
Oh, nothing. Yeah, I was
Oh,
just
okay.
nodding along to Isaac Pacheco. Looks completely lost right now. It's a real bummer.
All right. So my good is, you know what? I'm going to just keep rolling that change-up theme because, quite frankly, it is worth mentioning. And among top 5 in change-up active spin at 99.7 is one Joey Wentz. And Joey Wentz, to me, is I've been saying this since last year, and I think I've marched the beat to the own drum about this. Wentz, to me, has some of the best stuff. When he's on, he's had some of the best stuff out there. Granted, it's not consistent. And, in his last start against Baltimore, he got hit up. But people were wanting the same Joey Wentz they got from the Giants start. I think there's still a lot of good stuff there. It's going to take some time, but the Tigers, again, this is another example of the Tigers maximizing pitching potential and putting your best pitchers out there. So, to me, I think that just seeing that spin rate right there is good. It's a number that is actually being a positive for him, is helping him generate swings and misses with his cutter.
What's interesting about that is it goes along with the general view of kind of spin rate and things like that. It's either very good to be at the top or at the bottom. You what you don't want is to be right in the middle. So yeah, Wentz is near the top of spin rate, which is not something I generally active spin, which is not something I generally think about being good for a changeup. But if you're such an outlier, it is good. Mason Englert, I looked at just now, he's at the 70 percentile active spin, which is actually toward the bottom of the people mentioned, which again, I think is good. You just don't want to be whatever the middle is. So that's a fun one.
Yeah, and I'm like I said, if you're a fan, in terms of if you're a fan of guys that come along in the farm system, and just the progress of Wentz has made is, to me, after he had surgery, it's promising. So,
Yep.
I really believe he's a good back end starter. The bad, and we mentioned a little earlier, was that Jordan Walker down the St. Louis Cardinals, and just has been the whole thing's been a mess. First and foremost, you have your manager making passive aggressive comments about Tyler O'Neill. Then they send down Walker. As you mentioned earlier, Chris, he's seen 279. I would like 279 with 2 home runs, please. That would be cool. I take that any day of the week. You give me that all day. I'll take that. And then they signed Taylor Motter.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he was having a good spring, I think. And
he was having a good spring. But yeah. On April
really
12th, this guy had a. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, he was had career highs in exit velocity for some reason, multiple. But go ahead.
But it's here. What are we doing here? He tied up Eddie Murphy's 111-year record for the longest hit streak to start a career by a player age 20 or younger by hitting 12 straight games. He would get a parade here. Jordan Walker would get a damn parade here, and they call him back. What, the Cardinal way? Get off your high horse with that Cardinal crap. Don't seriously chop that stuff up. And what are you going to hire your own supply? What are you, nuts? 12-game hitting streak, and you call him down? I would love. Oh my God, he would get a mural, and the whale mural in Comerica Park. There'd be a Jordan Walker one right there.
Yeah.
12, get out of here, man. What is St. Louis?
Well, so
I'm sorry, Chris.
But here's the thing. Well, and I think that speaks to expectations from different cities, right? The Cardinals are 9-15, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a disaster for them. The Tigers are 9-14, and everybody's like, "Hey, not bad, boys." And the thing is, who else are you going to send down if you're St. Louis? They need to do something. They want to kickstart the offense. They're not going to send down. They can't do anything with Arenado. They can't do anything with Goldschmidt, of course. Are they going to? I don't know if they've benched Newt Barr or Carlson or O'Neill or Gorman. They had to do something, and I guess Walker's been good for a rookie, but just not what they need right now, I guess. And so they're like, all right, whatever, we'll send him down and get some of that service time back and see if we can catch some lightning in a bottle with Taylor Motter.
Ooh, Taylor Motter. It'd be one thing. I wouldn't give it a bat an eye. And Tyler in chat said they haven't had a 90 loss season since the 70s. The Cardinals are a good franchise, and I'm not. But I mean, look, the Tigers have sunk so low that I'm sitting here yelling about this, being that they would get a hitting parade or a ticker parade for Walker having a hitting streak. But the fact is, even from a baseball fan, he signed a minor league contract with the White Sox. Okay, just take it. Wait, who did? Oh, somebody. Sorry. I got.
Stephen Piscotty. I think.
Stephen Piscotty. Okay, Piscotty did. Okay, just to explain that to our audio listeners. The reason why I get so mad about that is because I don't think, even expectations aside, Chris, those numbers are not, they're not like terrible numbers. I mean, to me, if he's on any other team, he sticks around. Yankee fans would be celebrating this. Any other franchise would be celebrating this. The Cardinals have this strange thing about themselves that they think their way is the best way. But look at Randy Ozarena. Look at all former Cardinals that are out there who are thriving somewhere else because St. Louis is so stubborn and the Cardinal way. You know, seriously, just take that Cardinal way and shut up your ass, man. Like, I'm just serious. Like, seriously, knock it off.
Well, I don't know. I think my two takeaways from it are, one, maybe there's something else going on, like internally, where maybe he has some attitude issues or something like that.
If that's the case, then it's the same thing with Tyler O'Neill. And I mean, so what was the manager? Is it Carlos? Is it what's the guy's drawing a blank on his manager did?
Marmol.
Marmol.
Is his name Marmol?
Yeah, Marmol. It's the thing is that the whole situation. What are we doing here? Why is this being the manager show? Then, I mean, is this like? I know you can, or Oliver. Yes, Oliver Marmol. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why I thought Stan. He's the youngest. I mean, he's a young manager. I mean, I think he's what? I don't know. I know he's a young manager. I know that for a fact. But to me, I just think it's kind of ridiculous that he's sitting there calling these guys out. And I mean, you have to flex your authority. Actually, he's younger than me. So I must be doing something wrong that I think he's like 36, 37 years old. Anyway.
I was watching the Cardinals the other night. I was watching quite a bit of when they played the Giants and Jordan Montgomery was pitching. You look at that lineup. I think they're 9-15. They're not where they want to be. They're shaking things up. I would agree. I would have stuck with the young guy, Jordan Walker. But the thing I see is they just need to let the season breathe a little bit. I mean, they still have plenty of talent up and down the order. I'd be surprised if they're not in the race in the NL Central by midsummer. I really would. But yeah, I think just being a little impatient right now.
You know what? Because that's what the Cardinals are going to do. You know what they're going to do? They're going to go at the end of August and then win every game in September. Because they almost did that. They did that 2 years ago. That's what St. Louis does. St. Louis is like, screw you. They're going to put you the middle finger out there, and they're going to do it again because they're just going to lull you to sleep. And Cardinal fans are going to be just insufferable the entire summer. And you got the White Sox fans too. As a person that lives in the Midwest, I'm going to mute the Cardinals and mute the White Sox on Twitter because Lord knows I don't need any more sufferable baseball Midwestern fans here. Okay. And Stan, has the best comment. I despise the Redbirds since 1964 World Series. You're the man, Stan. You know what? It's not Stan Musial. No. That's not Stan the man. Stan. In our chat is Stan the man. No, Stan Musial is a great player. Rest in peace.
No, I mean, the one sort of quasi-explanation is that Jordan Walker is among baseball's leaders in swinging strike rate, and he's not walking much. So the Cardinals maybe, you know how Scott Harris talks about controlling the strike zone? Maybe the Cardinals are like serious about it, and like if you're not going to do it, you're going to step away. It's like 16%, and people complain like Riley Green. Riley Green's at like 12% swinging strike rate. Eric Haas leads the Tigers at like 19%. So, but he's not a qualified hitter. So I don't know. I mean, like you can justify it. I think it just feels odd to us because he had such a hot celebrated start, and he's such an impressive young rookie. But I don't know. The Cardinals, they do things a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think my other takeaway too is their offense right now is 6th in baseball with the 770 OPS. I think their pitching is the problem.
Yeah.
So,
You're right.
And that was going to be I was going to go with my ugly for that, but to me, they need more starter help, and they didn't address that enough. I said I was pretty adamant that they were I was pretty adamant that I thought they were going to add a starter in the offseason, and they didn't. And I was very surprised about that they didn't and go out and try to even make a trade with all the prospects they have. I mean, they could trade 2 or 3 guys, and their system would still be fine. I mean, I'm talking to you, St. Louis, about Erod. The Tigers do have somebody. I like Mason Wynn a lot. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But we can all shoot our shot and see what happens and go from there. So we'll see. But at any rate, my ugly is it's funny, one of those things where you look at it's too easy to do this, but I have to, because imagine you being like a Aroldis Chapman is not a good human being. He has been accused of assaulting women, all that. But imagine you're in New York, okay? All right, you're in the Big Apple, you're in Manhattan, you're driving around in a bulletproof Tahoe. I forgot what kind of car he had, SUV. Anyway, here you are throwing 102, 103, allegedly down, or they marked them down to 102, 103. Okay, you have an ERA of 1.93. Okay, your FIP is 0.65. 0.65. But that idea being low again, in terms of how low they are, in terms of like that, all those numbers are just being said. He's got K per 9 of 16.39. However, and he's carrying the weight for him, because the K per 9 for the Royals bullpen is 10.39. That's all him essentially.
Yeah.
But the ERA, the Royals ERA it's early. I understand it's April, sample size and all, but imagine being a Royals fan right now and having a bullpen ERA of 6.29. You're just the second worst behind the A's with a 6.84 bullpen. Who, by the way, over the week, the A's. I'm not finished with the A's yet. Ooh, because here's why I hate the A's right now. On my bench, because I decided on my Yahoo Fantasy on my bench, I decided not to start a certain outfielder who plays for Texas. Do you want to take a guess who I didn't start the day that he decided to go out? You guys know.
Adolis Garcia.
Garcia, I didn't start him. I don't know why I didn't start him. It was just one of those things like, and I go in there and I saw the numbers, like, yeah. And I go to my bench, and he was on my bench. I was vivid. Screw you, Oakland. Screw you, Kansas City, for not doing better on your bullpen. You have Chapman there, and he's going to, I don't know what, like you're going from eating fine steak at some nice restaurant down in Manhattan to having some good ribs. That being said, those two bullpens, for everybody who wants the here's the thing. You know how bad the bullpens are? 27th, the team that was ranked 28th. Arizona's at 4.63. So the next closest the worst second the worst bullpen after the Kansas City and Oakland is almost a full 2 runs worse.
Amazing.
That's how bad those two teams' bullpens are. That's ugly. That's 1996 Tigers bad. And before we end the segment, I want John, quick, name one Oakland A's bullpen guy. Go now.
Is Yusmeiro Petit?
Nope.
No.
Uber.
Danny Jimenez.
Who?
Danny Jimenez? Don't they still have him?
Yes, they do. Okay. Chris, Chris, go.
James Caprillion, I think, is in their bullpen now, right? Is he
James
still starting?
Caprillion? Yes. That's a good call there. Good pull there. Okay.
We're nailing it.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
I love the Yusmeiro Petit. He was where is he? He was like the world's greatest long reliever for like 5 years.
Yeah.
They had a good bullpen a couple years ago with like Liam Hendricks and stuff, but no.
Yeah, Familia. Well, Jeremy in YouTube, you live in Oakland, so you can't stop. He's citing Oakland pictures in our YouTube chat, and
Familiar.
He lives next door to him. Come
yeah,
on.
yeah. But anyway, all right, that is our segments for the week, and the Tigers open up another series with Baltimore starting on Thursday. Looking ahead a little bit of that, as there was an interesting stat that somebody brought up earlier about the Tigers, and I think it was in Discord. Chris, I don't know if you saw that stat or not about how the Tigers are facing against the other divisions.
Well, yeah, it's they've won every series that wasn't against the AL East. Is that right?
Yeah, they're 0-6 against the AL East this year. I'm sorry, 0-9. I'm sorry, 0-9.
Yeah, swept
They're
by the
0-9.
Rays, the Red Sox, and the Orioles, and then.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about Toronto. I'm sorry.
1-11, right?
Yeah, 1-11. 1-11. And you look at the run differentials too. For Boston and Tampa alone, Boston they were outscored 24-9, Tampa 21-3. So, yeah.
One thing I did want to mention. I don't know if you guys brought it up, but we got another one of those Tigers pitcher injury updates the other day. Was it today or yesterday?
Oh, yesterday.
Yesterday. So I assume people saw it, but just in case they didn't, I mean, the one big news from that was that Skubal has graduated on to throwing bullpens now, which is a good sign.
Yes.
He's still probably 6 weeks away from pitching, maybe more, from returning to the big leagues. I don't know, maybe 2 months. But that's a good first step, and it'll certainly help to get him back. Hopefully he won't be too long for him to get back to kind of form the way we've seen him, and that'll help. I don't know what happens to the rotation at that point. Could be Boyd, could be Lorenzen to the bullpen.
And Lawrence wanted to be a starter though, so I mean, but
You
always can't go. You want
don't
lottery.
6 ERA. We'll talk. We'll talk.
So, 70 already.
Well, and it's baseball, so somebody else will probably get hurt by then anyway.
Yeah.
But just thought I'd bring that up, and the other updates were fairly encouraging. Mize is still playing catch. I think Brisky has maybe moved on to playing catch. Freddie Pacheco, Matt Manning is about to start throwing.
John and I are playing catch too.
Hey.
There you go. So, I don't know. Just some mildly positive news.
Oh yeah, thank you, Stan. Stan said that Brisky pitched bullpen, so that's a good sign.
That's it.
Because down in Toledo today, it was just. Speaking of Toledo, by the way, I should give an update. Kevin Castro left after 11 pitches in his outing today, so that was kind of a pause for concern there. And Alex Vallejo only pitched he pitched some stressful innings, but he only pitched 2 innings today.
Was it 2 or 3?
I thought it was 2. Maybe it's 3.
Right. I mean, you were there. I don't want to.
No, I could be wrong. I mean, it's been a long day today.
Yeah, you did catch 2 games.
Yeah,
with a bunch of screaming kids.
All those kids. Toledo, there was 11 a.m. game, and I think it was like the elementary school kids around the area. It was the loudest I've ever seen that field. Fifth Third Field. It was loud. I mean, when you even hear the video, you're just like, where the hell are you? It was in Toledo. Second game, less than 100 people there. Less than I guarantee. I think Mike and I counted. Yeah, the seventh inning game, Stan. I was counting. I think Mike was able to count within 30 seconds how many people were in the second row and the first row. Yeah. We went down from the second row. We had really good seats in the second row. We went down in the first. I mean,
it was like that Tigers Indians game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was cool because my media pass, I could sit anywhere, but because Mike got really good seats, but then we just moved down, we were behind the catcher. So, but nobody really stood out today pitching wise for the Tigers down there. Hill struggled.
Yeah, Fido went 3 innings, 59 pitches. Garrett Hill went 2 innings, 39 pitches. But yeah, the interesting thing there is that I think we talked about it before, or at least we talked about it in the minor league thing at the end, was that Fido was supposed to pitch one of the doubleheaders last Saturday and didn't in either game. So given the short, we're just reckless speculation, but I'm wondering if maybe he was sick or maybe something was barking a little bit. Yeah. But it does seem like they're trying to play it both ways with Fido and Hill. Give them 2, 3, 4 innings at a time, so they could potentially use them as starters if they have to, but also, use them as a bullpen piece. So I don't know. But
Yeah.
looked like Diaz put up decent numbers, but I wasn't watching at that point.
No, Diaz today, he was pretty good. I mean, in terms of but I thought some of his he was still overthrowing a little bit. And yeah, Zabia, or what's the guy's name?
Anuri Sabala
Right. Pitched today, and he almost hit. There was a pitch that came right inside, and literally within 2 inches of this guy's head. He's still wild. This command still. Yeah, he came in the second game.
It's one of the cruelest things that nature pulls is giving somebody the ability to throw 101 miles an hour, but then not be able to throw it where they need to. It's just mean. It's the meanest.
Well, Stan, I mean, so Stan saying that Olsen was good. I thought the second inning was good. He had a 9-pitch second inning. He was very efficient. This was his best outing of the season. He was able to pitch the contact a little bit, but I still thought that he labored through a little bit from what we know about Olsen. By the way, he did win Gold Glove for his efforts in Erie. They did a little presentation. I felt bad for him because there was nobody in the ballpark when the second game started, and the presentation was, but no, Olsen was throwing. By the way, I should look at my notes here. One of the things that Olsen was doing was throwing his curve more, and he threw his curve I think 4 or 5 times, which is normally throws 1 or 2 per start. But he used his curve to get some swing and misses, and he was less fastball dependent and was trying to throw a slider a little bit more today. So that was encouraging. And the Mets have some pretty good. The Sixers Mets had some pretty good prospects too.
Yeah, Ronnie Mauricio and Mark Vientos.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's definitely fair to say that he was better. Olsen was better today because he's been really bad early. But you were there, and it wouldn't go so far as to say good, but there's some really interesting stuff there. If you're a Patreon, you can go. We dug into our buddy Jerry, dug into all the data, and I pulled out some fun stats there from Olsen that are interesting. So if you're the Patreon at the Tigers Minor League Report, you can go check that out. But I don't know. It's all things being equal, I'd rather him go out there and not give up runs than give up runs. But I'm not ready to call him up to Detroit yet.
Yeah, I'm not either. And at the same time, I think it is good across the system. It's not just except for West Michigan though. West Michigan's been getting better starting pitching than anywhere else, but it is strange to see that. Go ahead, Chris.
Grant Herter was good today for Erie.
My apologies. I forgot about. Yeah, he had a.
He's the one pitcher who's been pitching well. The starter who's been pitching consistently well for Erie, but again, still only 4 innings. That's just an org edict right now.
Yeah, apparently, and even too, there's that where if they hit that 30 pitches per inning, they're gonna hit that threshold. So.
And I once again I've overlooked Sawyer Gibson Long, who's been pitching well for Erie. I feel bad. I was like, that guy. Yeah. Somebody Dom Yusef asked if Franklin Perez is on our AAA team, and the answer to that is no.
No.
Franklin Perez is, if he's anywhere, he's in extended spring training and may show up again on the rookie league team. But I wouldn't expect anything from Franklin Perez as a professional baseball player, unfortunately.
So I just want to show people what's behind the paywall a little bit. So I know, Stan, I'm being too critical. I know Stan is saying Olsen had a whip for 4 innings, gave up only 1 run. I understand that. I just thought that he labored a little bit today. Still, it's not what Olsen could be. That's all I'm saying. I'm being too hard, but I'd rather be
direction.
Huh?
Step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'd rather be fair than I'm being fair about the whole thing. I thought he, again, pitched pretty good, but I think you guys appreciate this podcast for its brutal honesty versus telling you what you want to hear. So, but yeah, this is just want to give you an example of, if you're watching us on YouTube here, what you would get with the behind the paywall. So you see the StatCast data here, and $3 a month gets you that. And I know I'm trying to sell it to you, but this is the reason why you get stuff like this. And we got some other stuff. Jerry came up with today with a template that's beautiful, that has some other visuals. But anyway, I know I'm scrolling through this, but you want Mudhead's pitching data? By all means, we got it for you. We got a bunch of stuff, and we're doing more and more data dumps. And the Patreon will help pay guys like Jerry, because Jerry's a good people, and Jerry is going to be a damn astronaut someday. I don't know what he does on his day job. I think he's told me before, but Jerry is our unsung hero. I want to give him props every time because he does a good job.
So, yeah,
Right.
Jerry.
Do we have any questions, by the way, at the end of the podcast?
I saw 3 questions. I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't checked back to see if there was more. And
Yeah, I got them right here. I can.
All right. Okay, John, go ahead and read off the questions.
So Deadly Ninja Beast said, "How good can Mason Englert be without a fastball?" And then he said, "Which of the infield prospects will remain infielders?" And then he said, "At least we aren't the White Sox, right?"
That should be the name of the episode tonight. At least we're not the White Sox.
We've already discussed that. Yes.
Yeah.
Mason Englert, how good can he be without a fastball?
Well, there would seem to be a limit, right? There's a ceiling. I mean, if you can't compete with your fastball in the big leagues, that isn't a good thing. But they're finding a way around it right now by emphasizing, his secondary offerings. With him, they probably are his primary offerings, and that's okay. It's probably more of a reliever then. We'll see. And he's a Rule 5 guy. There's plenty of time. They may work with him on his fastball. I don't think he's sentenced to never have an effective fastball. It's a great start. It's been a fun month. Hope we can continue on. And the role he's in right now is just fine.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple things there. I think Alex Lang basically doesn't have a fastball. I know he throws it 96, 97, but it's not a good pitch. He gets hit hard, but he uses it sparingly enough that it basically becomes a hard changeup for him. It's a change of pace pitch. Now, I don't know how many starting pitchers can get away with throwing their fastball 10% of the time, but to Youp's point, this is a Rule 5 pick. This is a kid who hasn't thrown a ton of innings. I would bet that they can get him throwing slightly harder in the next year or two, just through some lower leg work and things like that. And maybe they can, fiddle with we've seen what they've done with Jason Foley over the last couple of years, right? Like they've really maximized his sinker and maybe they can mess around with Englert's, spin access and things like that and get a pitch that's at least effective for him as something that he doesn't throw, all the time. And the changeup's good. The slider's pretty good. He threw a particularly nasty slider to, who was it? Was it the Rowdy Tellez, right?
Yes, it was really something.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the last pitch I think that Tellez was expecting because he was getting change up, and like high fastball. It was a beautiful pitch, and he's also got a pretty solid curve. So I think he's got the full arsenal. It depends on what you want out of him. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's enough to be a successful starting pitcher, but he's looked awfully good as a long reliever, and if that's his ceiling, fine, because he's good at it. So I'm good with it. And the other one, how many infield prospects are going to stay in the infield?
Yeah.
At least 4.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who we're talking about here. So I guess if you start at AAA, you got Justin Henry Malloy. He's not a great third baseman. I think he'll be fine at third base. From what I've seen this year, admittedly, it's not a huge sample size. I like to lean on announcers for opinions on defensive prowess because they're there every game, and you could sit on a weekend series and see a guy handle 2 balls in the infield, just the way it works sometimes.
Like Malloy today, for example, I only saw him handle maybe 2 or 3 tops. Yeah. I think maybe 2.
I said handle 2 balls, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
I stopped myself. That's how I phrased it differently.
Do you still have the audio clip of Malloy?
Oh yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Some people may have heard this on the other podcast. But,
they did not hear. They did not hear on this podcast. Yes,
we don't like to criticize announcers. We know it's hard to talk for a while, but I still thought this was funny.
Yeah, I for the record, I can't talk to save my life, so I'm fully aware of my my. See, I can't talk right now because I'm looking for the clip. Well, here it is. Okay, so wait. No, keep going, Chris. Sorry.
So yeah, I mean, he's a guy. I think that they will stick with him at third base. It may end up not working out in the big leagues, but I think he's got a 50-50 chance. Then you got Winsel Perez, who has all the physical tools to play second base, but for whatever reason, he has like Willie Castro level throwing issues, and I don't know if they can fix that. In my head, I always feel like you can fix throwing issues. It seems simple, but they crop up for him seemingly out of nowhere, and it becomes an issue. So I think he may eventually have to move to the outfield, which is going to certainly diminish his value. But he could be. I think I've compared him before. He could be Willie Castro with walks, which I think would be an actually pretty decent bench piece. So
You talking about
There's that.
Winfield?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had some.
You know,
he had a couple bad throwing errors the other day.
yeah,
in-
he's
in
just he's
Richmond.
not a great defender.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So here's the Justin Henry Malloy clip. Enjoy. And come on now. Of course, it freezes up.
Game so far today. 3-2 pitch is slapped on the left side of the infield. Malloy can't get it up properly, and
That's unfortunate.
Oh man, that's gotta go on the board
It
at some
happens.
point. I have to put that on the board. But no, and I think out of all the ones, and Stan mentioned a few of them, between Kryler, Lipsius, Maton, Malloy, or Cole Keith, I think Lipsius is going to be staying in the infield. Where is the question? I think he's going to end up being like a utility second baseman or first baseman. I think he can play the right side of the infield just fine. He can handle both spots there.
He's been playing left field. He's been playing
Yeah.
third. He's been playing second. He's been playing first. I think, yeah. And the thing about Lipsius is he's just solid everywhere. It's not spectacular, but he makes the plays for the most part. He'll commit errors like everybody. But Kreidler is the most gifted defender in the system. I think he's a legitimate, above average shortstop. It's just can he hit? Then you got Gage Workman and Colt Keith in Double A. Gage Workman can play. He does play a lot of shortstop. I think he's just a tad bit inconsistent.
the infield, Malloy can't get it up properly, and
There we go.
Yeah.
Lucio. And then Colt Keith, we've talked about it before. Like, he's a guy who might hit enough that you're fine. You just put him at third and go, I'll take whatever happens. I still think his hands are just a little too stiff. So you'll see a lot of balls that he'll get to, and then they'll just bounce right out of his glove. And you can't have that, unfortunately. And then, Isaac Pacheco has been very impressive in front of me when I've seen him. He did have a couple throwing errors in one game, which is not great to see. But generally speaking, he's got more range than you would think for a kid his size. He's got a strong arm. His hands are soft. I'd like to think that he could stick at third base long term. But, again, you're talking about a 20-year-old in high A, so there's a lot of time yet left to go. And then beyond that, what do we got? We got Young. I don't know where else he could possibly play other than second base. He's limited. And Peyton Graham and Kristen Santana. I think Kristen Santana, probably a second baseman. Peyton Graham, I think, can play shortstop, but it's another guy who commits too many errors. So that runs it down right there. I think that's all of them, right?
Yeah, I think we got them all.
Yeah.
All right. What's the next question?
We had one. It was from Steve Butts. Do you know what happened in the sequence with Riley Green facing Milwaukee's lefty, then Milwaukee pulling the lefty for a righty to face Maton, and then pinch hitting Nevin to face the righty? Am I overthinking this?
So was that today? Was that yesterday?
No. Oh,
That was
that was today. I only watched the highlights. I have not had the chance to sit down and watch the whole game because down in Toledo.
Let me look.
So I think it was yesterday, though. I think didn't they?
All right, so that would have been late in the game, right?
All right.
Well, Green had a day off in there. Which was he off?
yesterday. I think he pinch hit yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. They Did he pinch hit? He pinch hit twice, right? He came in late and
We're scrambling here.
I don't know. Yeah, sorry. I don't
No, that's all right.
I don't remember what happened there. If he brought in a righty to face a righty, the only thing I can presume is that it was either a positional thing where they kind of had to, or he's just a guy with reverse splits, like a guy who maybe is whose best pitch is a changeup. Like, I don't know, but
Yeah, probably some pitch logic behind it. It's the only thing I can think of.
sorry, Steve.
Yeah, should have a better answer than that. So on that note, I think was that the last question, or do we have one more?
Yeah,
There
that
was
was
one more.
Okay.
I saw one more. I saw Joe sleeping. Did you see that?
Oh yeah. Starting pitchers are averaging only 5 innings per start. How long before the pen implodes due to overuse?
That's a loaded question, and the answer is simply this. I think it really depends. I mean, once the brutal part of the schedule's over, I think you're gonna see starters go a little longer. I mean, right now they in terms of they haven't really had a quote unquote easy part of the schedule. They got Baltimore next again, and then they don't play them for the rest of the year. So which is actually nice. They don't have to see Baltimore anymore. And you got the Mets next week, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get any easier. So I think once the hard part of schedule, I think that's just my opinion.
It's a long season, that's why I haven't fully embraced the bullpen bandwagon yet, because we're still not out of April. And unfortunately, a lot of times you have to take the long view of these things. Let's talk again on June 1st, where we think this bullpen is. The good news is Foley looks pretty legit. That looks like something that they can build on. Alex Lang, is an effective pitcher. So at least they have those two guys that if they space their workload out, they can count them at the end of the game, and we'll just see how long the other guys can last. Cisnero, hey, I'll be honest, I wrote that guy off. I had never expected to see much from him. The last couple times, he's shown a few pitches that he looks all right. So we'll see.
I've done the same. Admittedly, I thought because he hit 96, 97. So he's hitting high velocity again, and
yeah,
I'll admit it. I thought Cisnero might have been his way out, but I was wrong. He's pitched better as of late.
Well, how about Will Best? 3 innings pitched, got 7 strikeouts. Hasn't given up an earned run yet.
Yeah, that was unexpected too. That was, remember we saw him in Toledo beginning of the year, and he looked terrible.
Yeah, I think he must have did some mechanical adjustment, and that's what happens with relievers sometimes. I do think it's like a matter of perspective here. So the Tigers are like 29th in innings from starting pitching, and the Rays are first, I think, with like 25 more innings in 25 games. So it's you're talking about like 1 inning per game. I think the recent performances of Eduardo Rodriguez have really, really helped. When you can get a guy who goes 8 innings, 7 innings, and you reduce it to 1 or 2 arms, I think that was really good for a bullpen. So what you'd like is to maybe if you could just get, I don't know, Turnbull or Boyd to occasionally throw 6 innings. I think, and Rodriguez is not going to do that every start, but so far I think that has been, I think, the improvement in Rodriguez and the ascendance of the bullpen, I think, go hand in hand a little bit. And then Englert, Englert is, I think he has the 4th or 5th most innings pitched on the team right now. He's been quietly really valuable. I don't like quietly, on a national scene. I think Tigers fans are recognizing the job he's doing. But
yeah, who saw him pitching with leverage situations?
Yeah, not me. I thought he would come into blowouts. I thought he might get a spot start, and here he is out there. Like Hinch is just throwing him out there for here. You take 10 batters, and and he's doing a really admirable job. So, bullpens have weird stretches too, where suddenly nobody can get anybody out. So I'm sure we'll run into that eventually. But right now, it's signs pointing up. I'm still not convinced either, but we'll see.
I'll take it. As of right now, I'll take it. So it's just if any type of little small victories for now with the way the schedule's been rolling out. So at that point, thank you so much for listening to, or at that point, well, see, this is the, and I can tell when I'm fried because of the amount of, it's been a long day. But thanks so much for everybody being so patient, everybody tuning in on YouTube, and really appreciate everybody with the feedback and comments. And again, if you want to go to our Patreon, all goes back to the website. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/Tiger ML Report. Please subscribe to Motor City Metrics on YouTube if you haven't already. So that way, John over here can also acquire some funds so we can have some super chats. We can do some stuff with content. And if you have content ideas, if you want us to break down a player or anything like that, you let us know and we'll take care of it for you. And of course, our email at tigersmlreport@gmail.com. And follow us on social media. And we'll be back Sunday. Some portion of us, whether it's John Uper or Cameron, the 5th Beatle. So Cameron did a really good job. Oh, shout out to Cameron, by the way, for filling in on Sunday. I got before I forget, he did a really good job. And
he's always great.
Yeah, he's a very good hitter, good pinch hitter. A hitter. Yeah, okay. I'm going to bed now. So good night, everybody. And we'll talk to you in a couple days.
Wait, who do you want the lines to take?
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
I don't care either. You know what? Well, no. Okay, you know what? All right. Let me end the podcast with this.
Oh no.
So we're listening to 97.1. sorry. Real quick. Listen to 97.1 The Ticket today, and Lenny after the show was like, "The Tigers lost. Who cares? The NFL draft 2-4." we are everybody. Thanks to, I mean, you can blame ESPN, you can blame the NFL. Everyone's talking about the draft. No one cares about the Tigers right now, except the 26 people. Well, more than 26 people in our chat and all our listeners. So I don't care who the Lions are picking tomorrow. And enjoy it. You watch the NFL draft, by all means, knock yourself out. I don't care. At this point, I just don't care. Just let it get. I'm the day the mock drafts are over, then we can start our draft coverage because yes, we have our draft show, and that is more important than
Max Clark, baby.
I like my favorite thing though is to do like I just like to do a mock draft where they just take all the players with like the dirty names. There's a dude named Orgy who's like a 7th rounder. I'm like, yeah, give him first round. Orgy. So,
all right, let's wrap. All right. We'll see you guys in a few days.
Hendon Hooker.
Oh no.
Zach